So now I'm going to show you how to resize your character. Sometimes you might have to resize characters after you've rigged them or skinned them because something may come up within a game development pipeline that was unforeseen. So I'm going to show you a quick, pretty easy way of getting that character size down and get them ready to go to put inside the engine without really losing too much production time. So starting off, I went ahead and made a box that's 6 feet high. And clearly looking at our character, we can see that he's 12 feet high, which is pretty much not normal unless your character is a giant. But I'm pretty sure this guy needs to be around the 6 foot margin. So the first thing we need to do is go ahead and select all of our bones and delete the animation that we have. Just make sure that you save it out so that way you can call it back up when we're done. And go ahead and put the character back into figure mode. So once the character is in your figure pose, go ahead and go to the Utilities tab and go to Scan Utilities. You might have to go into Sets and actually add it to your drop down. So go ahead and make a skin data layer and extract skin data to mesh. What this basically does is that it takes the skin data off the mesh that we have and then adds it into the mesh that we're fixing to extract to. So as you see, when I press extract, it creates another mesh. And all it is, it's literally just an editable poly, but there's skin data that's inside this mesh. It's from the skin modifier on our original mesh. So in the end, we'll be able to select both the meshes, the skin data and the original mesh, and import the data from the skin data mesh onto the original mesh after we've done our resizing. From personal experience, I found that using the skin utilities is a lot more efficient and reliable than just saving the envelope out of the skin modifier. So I would recommend it highly. So go ahead and select your armor mesh and let's create a skin data for that as well. And go ahead and hide them. So let's go ahead and delete our skin modifier on both the body mesh and our armor mesh, because we will not be able to make any scaling to the biped if we have a skin modifier on it. And let's go ahead and make a dummy. What we need the dummy for is that when we start scaling the biped, all of our props and mesh will scale with the biped, but it won't scale the orientation of the props. So linking all our props and meshes to the dummy and scaling the dummy instead will help us keep that orientation and the scale in sync with the biped scaling. So go ahead and make sure you zero out the XYZs to the dummy. And I'm just going to go ahead and show you what happens when you don't link the props and meshes to the dummy. So I'm going to go ahead and make this 72 inches tall, which is 6 feet, the exact same height as our box. And as you can see already, we scaled it down in that our prop bones are all basically the same size still. So even if we grab just a shoulder bone, for example, and scale that down, I've already did my math and figured out that 72 inches from the 201 inches that the biped was originally sized is basically 35.80%. So that's how much percent that I need to scale this down as. So as I scaled it down, we noticed that position is not the same, whereas it needs to be more directly over the collarbone. So I'm gonna go ahead and undo all this and start back over the correct way of doing it. So go ahead and select all of our prop bones. The only disadvantage of using this technique is that since we'll be linking our prop bones to the dummy, we'll lose our child-parent relationship, the biped that we have linked them to. But since these are just simple bones, nothing too complex, it'll be easy to just link those back to the biped once the scaling's all complete. So go ahead and unhide your scan data and select all your meshes. The reason why we have to do our meshes is because our orientation is not at 0, 0, 0. It's more or less in the center of the pelvis. If it was at 0, 0, 0, then we could just scale 35.80% and it would scale down pretty evenly. Now go ahead and scale down the dummy 35.80%. And make sure you put your biped back down to 72 inches. So now looking at our mesh and our skeleton, everything's looking pretty good with a scale. So let's go ahead and hide our scan data out of the way and link our props back to the biped. And make sure to unlink the skin mesh from the dummy, which you can do just by deleting the dummy. Now we'll need to go ahead and select our mesh for the armor and the body and reassign the scan modifier back onto it. Sometimes you can actually copy the modifier of whatever modifier you want to use. Sometimes I can copy the scan modifier, but since you're scaling down the object, the scan might be skewed and we might have some nasty results. So I went ahead and just created a new one. And now let's add our bones. And now let's go back and go ahead and do all our settings that we had before when we started. And now we're ready to use our scan data that we created earlier as well. We can only do one mesh at a time when we import the scan data into a mesh. So I'm gonna go ahead and do the armor piece first. So unhide your scan data, go ahead and select your armor, and select the scan data for the armor. So you're basically selecting both the armor mesh and the armor scan data. Go to utilities, scan utilities, and we're going to import scan data from mesh. So this is an important key when I was mentioning about name convention of your bones being the same. As of right now, I'm pretty sure all of our names are the same. So when I match my name, all the source bones will be going to all the target bones. So I've went ahead and removed the shoulder bone out of our skin so I can show what it would look like. So let's go ahead and add our shoulder bone back on our skin. You can go to OK. So now our shoulder bone is aligned up to the shoulder bone. If you need to line it up by manually, you just find your bone, select your source bone, target bone, and there we go. So let's OK that. And now let's select our body mesh and the scan data for that mesh as well. Make sure to just select just the meshes. Be careful not to select any bones or anything extra. So let's go ahead and hide our scan data and check our results. So our guy's moving around pretty good. And he's now 72 inches high, just like our box over here. So once you're done with everything, make sure to double check your character. Make sure there's no missing verts there, missing weight, or any inconsistencies, and start animating. Good luck.